Hello everybody, welcome to the show. This is Ross Madden with the Truther Think Tank. Today we are covering Donald Trump's press conference after the Singapore summit with North Korea and Kim Jong-un. Pundits are going to give you their opinion. Trump's tweets are going to cover some of this, but Trump actually says a lot in this press conference that is not being covered by the media and is not covered in his tweets, or you're just not going to get anywhere but from the horse's mouth. So let's just listen to President Trump speak about what he thought the themes of the meeting were. You're going to hear President Trump sell peace with North Korea and Kim Jong-un to the American people. And I think that we can all agree that that's better than what we have been dealing with, which is this boogeyman that pops out of the closet and scares us every once in a while with threats of nuclear tests or whatever, which hasn't happened in 7 months. I will remind you that the last nuclear test was back in November when North Korea shot missiles over Japan. That was the last time. Trump also repeats the theme that this meeting has been in the works for a long time, for months even. But my first impression of this whole thing was this is an hour-long Q&A with a vicious media after being awake, working, negotiating on behalf of the United States for the last 24 hours. Catch that right in the beginning. He says 24 hours he's been negotiating. Without further ado, here's President Trump.
Had a tremendous 24 hours. We've had a tremendous 3 months, actually, because this has been going on for quite a while. That was a tape that we gave to Chairman Kim and his people.
I'm going to run the tape in the corner muted.
It captures a lot, captures what could be done. And that's a great place, has the potential to be an incredible place between South Korea, if you think about it, and China. It's got tremendous potential, and I think he understands that, and he wants to do what's right. It's my honor today to address the people of the world following this very historic summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea. We spent very intensive hours together, and I think most of you have gotten the signed document, or you will very shortly. It's very comprehensive. It's going to happen. I stand before you as an emissary of the American people to deliver a message of hope and vision and a message of peace.
And there are the themes: hope, vision, and peace. That is what Donald Trump wants for North Korea. And if they can achieve that, then it looks like Donald Trump is selling him on the possibility of having sports, of having hospitals, of having electricity, of being connected to the grid, the internet. The video Trump showed Kim has trains, hydroelectric power, solar panels. It's got schools. I think Trump did a really good job of selling peace to the North Koreans. He also shows what happens if North Korea chooses not to give up their missiles. So President Trump thanks the leadership of Singapore and Japan and China, but when he thanks President Xi, he says something strange.
And a very special person, President Xi of China, who has really closed up that border. Maybe a little bit less so over the last couple of months, but that's okay.
I'm just curious why he wants the border with North Korea and China closed up so tightly. I believe it is because he wants to put pressure on North Korea in order to force their hand into giving up the missiles. In a sense, he wants a crisis in North Korea because it makes them weaker at the negotiating table.
Most importantly, I want to thank Chairman Kim for taking the first bold step toward a bright new future for his people. Our unprecedented meeting, the first between an American president and a leader of North Korea, proves that real change is indeed possible.
Real change is indeed possible. That's a powerful statement. Aside from just having the meeting and getting the agreement signed, Donald Trump says a couple of things that just earn him the Peace Prize in my book, in my heart. Donald Trump did it. But he says the best thing. The real prize is peace. And that's why he's the president.
Nearly 70 years ago, think of that, 70 years ago, an extremely bloody conflict ravaged the Korean Peninsula. Countless people died in the conflict, including tens of thousands of brave Americans. Yet while the armistice was agreed to, the war never ended, to this day, never ended. But now we can all have hope that it will soon end, and it will soon end. The past does not have to define the future. Yesterday's conflict does not have to be tomorrow's war. And as history has proven over and over again, adversaries can indeed become friends. We can honor the sacrifice of our forefathers by replacing the horrors of battle with the blessings of peace. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we have done.
Well, that all sounds great. Donald Trump's going to talk about what they agreed to, but if you really want to know, you should dive into the actual agreement. Donald Trump is also about to say why he thinks this hasn't happened in prior years, in prior administrations.
Chairman Kim and I just signed a joint statement in which he reaffirmed his unwavering commitment to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We also agreed to vigorous negotiations to implement the agreement as soon as possible. And he wants to do that. This isn't the past. This isn't another administration that never got it started and therefore never got it done. The other groups, maybe it wasn't a priority. I don't think they could have done it if it was a priority, frankly. I don't think they honestly could have done it even if it was a priority. And it would have been easier back then. Would have been, for me, it would have been much easier if this were 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I'm not just blaming President Obama. I mean, this goes back for 25 years. This should have happened. Chairman Kim has told me that North Korea is already destroying a major missile engine testing site. That's not in your signed document. We agreed to that after the agreement was signed. That's a big thing. For the missiles that they were testing, the site is going to be destroyed very soon. Today is the beginning of an arduous process. Our eyes are wide open, but peace is always worth the effort, especially in this case. This should have been done years ago. They should have been resolved a long time ago. But we're resolving it now. Chairman Kim has the chance to seize an incredible future for his people. Anyone can make war, but only the most courageous can make peace.
It's statements like that. And what does peace mean? Peace means unification of the Korean Peninsula. Listen.
They share the same heritage, language, customs, culture, and destiny. But to realize their amazing destiny, to reunite their national family, the menace of nuclear weapons will now be removed. In the meantime, the sanctions will remain in effect.
The deal is they're giving up their nuclear capabilities and we are stopping the war games, which we'll get into in a minute, but we're keeping the sanctions. Now we're going to get into the Q&A section where the press is basically going to undermine the greatness of this agreement. They're going to say, is this verified? How do you know? He slips in some methods of verification, but not right here, and we're going to wait to dive into that when he gets there.
What timetable do you envision for their denuclearization? And in the meantime, are you thinking about easing any sanctions?
Well, you know, scientifically, I've been watching and reading a lot about this, and it does take a long time to, pull off complete denuclearization. It takes a long time. But despite that, once you start the process, it means it's pretty much over. You can't use them. That's the good news. And that's going to start very, very soon. As fast as it can be done mechanically. I don't think, I've read horror stories. It's a 15-year process, okay? Assuming you wanted to do it quickly, I don't believe that. I think whoever wrote that is wrong. But there will be a point at which, when you're 20% through, you can't go back. The sanctions will come off when we are sure that the nukes are no longer a factor.
The man you met today, Kim Jong-un, as you know, has killed family members, has starved his own people, is responsible for the death of Otto Warmbier. Why are you so comfortable calling him very talented?
Well, he is very talented. Anybody that takes over a situation like he did at 26 years of age and is able to run it, and run it tough. I don't say he was nice, or I don't say anything about it. I really think that Otto is someone who did not die in vain. I told this to his parents. Special young man, and I have to say, special parents, special people. Otto did not die in vain. He had a lot to do with us being here today. Okay? Thank you very much.
President, that second question for you, sir, was on the security. Second question, sir,
Go ahead.
on the security assurances you talked about in your statement. Can you be specific about what assurances you are willing to give to Kim Jong-un? Does that include reducing military capabilities? And just to follow up on your answer.
No, we're not reducing anything. We're not reducing.
For now should be in parentheses after that statement. Donald Trump talks about wanting to reduce the sanctions, wanting to stop the provocative war games, but most importantly, he talks about wanting to bring the troops home from Korea.
The sanctions right now remain. But at a certain point, I actually look forward to taking them off. And they'll come off when we know we're down the road where it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Okay? I want to get our soldiers out. I want to bring our soldiers back home. We have right now 32,000 soldiers in South Korea. And I'd like to be able to bring them back home. But that's not part of the equation right now. At some point, I hope it will be, but not right now. We will be stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money, unless and until we see that the future negotiation is not going along like it should. But we'll be saving a tremendous amount of money. Plus, I think it's very provocative.
To me, it is very important that Donald Trump recognizes that those drills are very provocative and that the United States has been historically aggressive internationally. Now skipping ahead to the next question about those war games.
Can you clarify when you said you're stopping war games? So
Yeah.
you are stopping the military exercises with South Korea?
Yeah, we've done exercises for a long period of time working with South Korea. And we call them war games, and I call them war games, and they're tremendously expensive. We pay for a big majority of them. We fly in bombers from Guam. I said it when I first started. I said, where do the bombers come from? Guam, nearby. I said, oh, great, nearby. Where's nearby? 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours, that's a long time for these big, massive planes to be flying to South Korea to practice and then drop bombs all over the place and then go back to Guam. I know a lot about airplanes. It's very expensive. And I didn't like it. And what I did say is, and I think it's very provocative. I have to tell you, Jennifer, it's a very provocative situation. When I see that, and you have a country right next door. So under the circumstances that we're negotiating a very comprehensive, complete deal, I think it's inappropriate to be having war games. So number one, we save money a lot. And number two, it really is something that I think they very much appreciated.
Now the media is going to try and hammer him on his inability to confirm the missiles are being removed, and Donald Trump actually details two different ways that he can confirm that, but they're kind of intelligence methods, so he doesn't spell it out for you, but he'll mention it and I'll spell it out.
Mr. President, the joint statement does not talk about verifiable or irreversible denuclearization.
Yeah, we talk about the guarantees, and we talk about unwavering commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This is the document that we just signed. We're actually very far. You know, that document, when you read it today, that's far down the line. That's not something that just happened to be put together. This was done over months.
In North Korea, another huge problem is the horrible record that they have on human rights. Was that discussed at all? Is that something that you will tackle in the future?
Yes, it was discussed. It will be discussed more in the future, human rights. And what was also discussed in great detail, John, was the fact that, you know, we have, and I must have had just countless calls and letters and tweets, anything you can do. They want the remains of their sons back. They want the remains of their fathers and mothers and all of the people that got caught into that really brutal war, which took place to a large extent in North Korea. And I asked for it today, and we got it. That was a very last minute. The remains will be coming back. They're going to start that process immediately. But so many people, even during the campaign, they'd say, is there any way you can work with North Korea to get the remains of my son back or my father back? So many people ask me this question, and I said, look, we don't get along too well with that particular group of people, but now we do. And he agreed to that so quickly and so nice. It was really a very nice thing, and he understands it. He understands it. So for the thousands and thousands, I guess way over 6,000 that we know of in terms of the remains, they'll be brought back. Bringing back the remains, that was not one of the things that was on our agenda today. I brought it up at the very end because so many people had talked to me about it, and I brought it up at the very end, and he was really very gracious. Instead of saying, well, let's talk about it the next time, he said, it makes sense, we will do it. And he knew, they know where many of those incredible people are, where they're buried, along roads, along highways, along paths, usually, because our soldiers were moving back and forth and they had to move rapidly.
The same reporter brings the question back to the human rights of the North Koreans, but I really don't think Donald Trump has a lot of leverage in this area.
Not much I can do right now. At a certain point, I really believe he's going to do things about it. I think they are one of the great winners today, that large group of people that you're talking about. I think ultimately they're going to be one of the great winners as a group. Yes, he brought up the fact that in the past they took dialogue far. They never were like we are. There's never been anything like what's taken place now. But they went down the line. Billions of dollars were given, and the following day, the nuclear program continued.
Well, doesn't that sound familiar? Looking back at the deals that past administrations have made through the lens of Donald Trump just really lets you know how badly they were running our foreign policy. Past administrations weren't willing to meet, they weren't willing to talk, much less willing to invite Chairman Kim to the White House.
Well, at a certain time, I will. I said that will be a day that I look very much forward to at the appropriate time. And I also will be inviting Chairman Kim at the appropriate time to the White House. Christians, yes, we brought it up very strongly. Franklin Graham spent and spends a tremendous amount of time in North Korea. He's got it very close to his heart.
Very cool. Reverend Franklin Graham gets a shout out at the Singapore summit from President Trump. It sounds like he's a celebrity ambassador for the United States. He's kind of like a white, Christian, older Dennis Rodman. What really bothers me about this press conference is how terrible the media's questions are. They constantly ask him, what did you have to give up? And not one of them has asked you, Trump, what do you think you've accomplished here? In fact, he has to take a negative question and turn it around just to get those statements out. And this is quite a list of accomplishments, I think, for just 3 months of negotiating.
And they got a meeting, but only a person that dislikes Donald Trump would say that I've agreed to make a big commitment. Sure, I've agreed to take a period of time and come here and meet, and that's good. But I think it's great for us and as a country, and I think it's good for them. But what did they do to justify this meeting? Secured commitment for complete denuclearization. That's the big thing. They secured the release of 3 American hostages. They already gave them to us 2 months ago. These people are now living happily back in their homes with their families, and it was pretty rough for them, to put it mildly. Secure the commitment to recover the remains, including, these are of fallen heroes. So we're getting the remains back. Secure the halt of all missile and nuclear tests. For how long has it been? 7 months? You haven't had a missile go up. For 7 months, you haven't had a nuclear test. You haven't had a nuclear explosion. I remember a nuclear event took place, 8.8 on the Richter scale. And they announced, I heard it on the radio, they announced that a massive, earthquake took place somewhere in Asia. And then they said it was in North Korea, and then they found out it was a nuclear test. I said, I never heard of a Richter scale in the high 8s. And if you look, there has been no missile launches. They secured the commitment to destroy the missile engine testing site. That was not in your agreement. I got that after we signed the agreement. I said, do me a favor. You've got this missile engine testing site. We know where it is. Because of the heat, it's incredible the equipment we have, to be honest with you. I said, can you close it up? You're going to close it up.
Not only is Donald Trump getting his primary objective of denuclearization, he's also set up ways that Kim Jong-un can show signs of good faith by returning the remains of the POWs, by destroying nuclear sites. In fact, he touches on 2 ways that he can confirm that those sites have been shut down, and he says they've been closed down.
And I would be surprised, Mike, if they haven't even started already. They have started. They blew up their sites. They blew up their testing site.
The first way he talks about is the earthquake method. He talks about this anomalous earthquake, an 8.8 on the Richter scale. The epicenter just happened to be directly over top of a nuclear testing site in North Korea. That supposedly was them destroying that site.
I remember a nuclear event took place, 8.8 on the Richter scale.
The second method of verification is this heat signature spying camera that we have on our satellites. We're able to see from space this heat signature that is given off by a nuclear engine testing site. Now, Donald Trump's not going to dive in this presser about how we can spy on them from space with infrared cameras. But that's essentially what he's saying. We've got ways of doing this. And he says we've got incredible technology that you won't believe.
You've got this missile engine testing site. We know where it is. Because of the heat, it's incredible the equipment we have, to be honest with you. I said, can you close it up? You're going to close it up.
While Donald Trump has gotten Kim Jong-un to agree to all of these concessions on North Korea's behalf, all the media is fixated on, they ask 100 ways from Sunday, how are you confirming the nuclear sites are being destroyed? And I'm not going to subject you to all of that, but here is just 1 or 2 times when they ask.
Did you discuss with Chairman Kim methods to verify, either with the United States or international organizations, that very process? And do you
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And we'll be verifying. Yeah, we'll be verifying. It'll be verified.
How is that going to be achieved, Mr. President?
Well, it's going to be achieved by having a lot of people there.
Talk about how
Sure,
you, how
that's
you,
what they're doing.
well,
I mean, I don't
how
think
you
the...
pressed
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un for a complete, verifiable, irreversible...
Yeah, I didn't honestly...
How do you ensure that North Korea is not all talk, no action?
Well,
going
I think,
forward?
can you ensure anything? Can I ensure that you're going to be able to sit down properly when you sit down? I mean...
It's frustrating to be asked the same dumb question on a day when you've just accomplished a great task. Next, Donald Trump talks about South Korea and how important this deal is to them.
Seoul has 28 million people. We think we have big cities. You look at New York where it has 8 million people. We think it's a big city. Seoul has 28 million people. Think of that. And it's right next to the border. It's right next to the DMZ. It's right there. I mean, if this would have happened, I think, I've heard, 100,000 people. I think you could have lost 20 million people, 30 million people. North Korea did a great thing by going to the Olympics, because the Olympics, and President Moon will tell you this, the Olympics was not exactly doing great. People didn't feel like being bombed out of the opening ceremonies. They weren't exactly selling tickets. And as soon as the Chairman Kim, said, let's participate in the Olympics, it sold like wildfire and was a great success as an Olympics. It was a great success. He did a great thing. But since that time, pretty much since that time, because as you know, a delegation came from South Korea who had just met with North Korea. They came to the White House. They told me lots of things, including the fact that they'd be willing to denuke. We have one of their great people here today. That they were willing to denuke. And once that started, we have been really talking about that from the end of the Olympics, when the whole delegation came to say various things, including denuking.
President Trump is talking about how long this deal has been in the works, and then he mentions his uncle, Uncle John.
I had an uncle who was a great professor for, I believe, 40 years at MIT. And I used to discuss nuclear with him all the time. He was a great expert. He was a great, brilliant genius, Dr. John Trump at MIT. I think he was there 40 years, I was told. In fact, the head of MIT sent me a book on my uncle.
President Trump just name-dropped his uncle, John G. Trump. John G. Trump was in charge of the operation that confiscated Tesla's papers. So John G. Trump would know a lot about alternative energy sources, be that nuclear thorium or a Tesla energy source that we're not really aware of right now.
Told you how many nuclear weapons he believes he's made?
I really believe, David, that it's going to go very quickly. I really believe that it's going to go fast. And it is a very substantial arsenal. There's no question about it. You know, I used to say, maybe it's all talk and no action. But we have pretty good intelligence into that, although probably less there than any other country. You understand that maybe better than anybody in the room. Probably less there than any other country. But we have enough intelligence to know that what they have is very substantial.
I believe Donald Trump just called David from the New York Times out as being an intelligence agent. It's widely known and understood that ex-FBI, ex-CIA agents go into the media, like James Clapper, for instance, and they spout lies on TV. This guy is a nasty question asker, at the very least.
This is why, David, I always say that this shouldn't have taken place so late into the process. Wouldn't this have been better if it was 5 years ago or 20 years ago or 15 years ago and we didn't have to worry about not having a successful meeting like today? Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Brian Bennett from Time Magazine.
Yes, hi, Brian. Am I undercover again this week? Boy, have I been so many covers.
Entirely possible.
Huh? I know. That's
Do you
okay.
now see
Time Magazine is an absolute embarrassment. Everyone should unsubscribe and boycott. Here's the cover that he's talking about. The media is asking absolutely terrible questions. They're not asking the questions about what good things can come of this deal, not just for the American people, not just for the people of North Korea, for the commerce of North Korea. So Donald Trump pretty much has to do this whole thing himself. He shouldn't accept questions. He should just write a 40-minute long speech and give the whole thing. But it's actually very rare for a leader to do a long-form media interview. I don't remember Barack Obama doing hour-long media press conferences. The only leader that I know of that does this is President Putin. His press conferences will go on for 2 or 3 hours, and sometimes he'll spend 10 minutes on a single question, and he just goes off of the brain. You can tell he really knows what he's talking about.
As an example, they have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that bridge. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? And I explained, I said, you know, instead of doing that, you could have the best hotels in the world right there. Think of it from a real estate perspective. You have South Korea, you have China, and they own the land in the middle. How bad is that, right? It's great. Oh, South Korea? Where's South Korea? I think you deserve, go ahead, go. You deserve one, yes.
In signing the peace treaty, do you plan to work this out with North Korea's Chairman Kim only, or what do you think about the involvement of South Korea and China as the signatories?
I'd like to have them involved also. There's a question as to whether or not we're supposed to or whether or not we legally have to. I don't care. I think it would be great to have China involved and also, of course, South Korea. Okay.
You can't congratulate the media after a terrible press conference like that, but Donald Trump sort of congratulates them anyway because it's a great day for America and it's a great day for the whole world.
And thank you very much, and sort of congratulations to everybody, because this is a really, to me, it's a very important event in world history. And to be really true to myself, I have to add, I want to get it completed. So Mike, our whole team has to get to work and get it completed, because otherwise we've done a good job. But if you don't get the ball over the goal line, it doesn't mean enough, okay? So thank you, and sort of congratulations to everybody in the room. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.